Hi, so my name is Annette Joseph. I am the founder of Diverse and Equal. I'm also a delivery manager and agile coach. I was the chair of the BAME colleague network at the Co-op, and I'm really glad to be here today. Thank you.
Thanks, Annette, and welcome, Jo.
Hi, my name's Jo Morfee. I'm the co-founder of Innovate Her. We're a social enterprise getting girls ready for the tech industry and the industry ready for girls. We've been active since 2016 and we've worked with around 1,500 girls aged 13 to 16 to date. Really looking forward to the chat today. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jo. And hi, Vimla.
Hi, I'm Vimla Appado and I'm the Head of Experience at Culture Shift, an organisation that is building software to help people who've experienced bullying and harassment in the workplace or place of study to get access to support and prevent that type of behaviour from existing. And I'm also the co-founder of an organisation called Honey Badger that started last year that's trying to bring more culture design into organisations to help people feel happier in the workplace. I love challenging, and I think knowing Annette and Jo, I think it's something we probably all do every day in some way, shape or form. And I think what's really sparked my imagination and like positivity with this theme for International Women's Day is for me it brings intersectionality into the conversation, because as women who also wear lots of different hats and have lots of different aspects to our personality, it's about challenging on behalf of all women. And I think that's what I've enjoyed seeing the shift in International Women's Day over the last few years. Like I've enjoyed seeing that shift happen. So I think challenge is definitely something that's been missing from the debate, or that kind of call to arms in recent years.
Yeah, I would have to definitely agree with that. It's been really heartening to see the inclusion, because before there wasn't really that much intersectionality. It almost felt as a Black woman that we were kind of being a little bit left out. So that challenging piece is really, really key to getting everybody on board, getting people feeling empowered, and giving them the license really to challenge the structures and the status quo. So because it's not enough to be, I'm not sexist or I'm not racist. We have to be anti-racist and anti-sexist, and the challenging is key to that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. I think that the word alert is quite an interesting word, so I'm just going to pick up on that. I think that whenever I've used my voice or my platform to speak out for women, I've quite frequently been trolled. And I think, it happens a lot to me on social media, and people say to me, well, that's good because it means that you're saying something challenging that's worth saying, that's making people think. So obviously we just try and ignore the trolls, but I think it does bring that alertness within society when people start using their voice and they start speaking up. One of the concerns I do have around days like International Women's Day is that they can become sometimes a bit of an echo chamber, where it's the same people amplifying the messages. And what I think we really need to do is reach out further and reach different groups, and particularly people who don't see the worth in International Women's Day or in celebrating difference, and try and bring that alertness to society that this is still an issue. Because a lot of the time I'm also told that the equality, the gender issue is fixed. It's far from fixed. So that would be just something I wanted to pick up on there.
I mean, I think the 17% of women in tech certainly speaks for itself when we talk about the gender issue being fixed. I'm really interested to know, what does choose to challenge mean to you all individually?
The important part is the choice. I think it's taken me a long time to learn that it is a choice when I use my voice and how I use it. I spent a lot of my kind of early career jumping into every battle and challenging everything that I thought was wrong. And like Jo says, the trolls come out, it's exhausting, and whether I like it or not, it affects me. Like having those conversations time and time again just is mentally draining. And so I think the choice of like choosing to challenge when things aren't okay is so important, because it also gives us the freedom to say no, and actually I'm not going to challenge today. This isn't my time or my space, or I'm just not feeling okay to do it. And so that's really empowering in and of itself.
I think that's a really, really important point there about us understanding our choices, and also the ability to say no. And as you know, in this space, we are always being challenged in different ways, and it takes a lot to step up and use your voice. You know, a lot of women have seen that in various ways. You know, so it's a really important point there, and I think we are. I think I'm privileged here to kind of sit with others that I know are choosing to challenge in their own way and really making a difference. So it's great to kind of hear in your own words what that personally means to you. Annette, Jo?
I would say the choosing, yes, but it also feels like an invitation. So it feels like an invitation for other people to get involved. I think one of the reasons why we have struggled so much challenging, sexism and inequality is because it's the people who are affected by it, whose voices are minimized, that are the ones that have been doing the challenging out of desperation. And this choosing to challenge is actually an invitation for other people who are not being affected by it, who are perhaps standing on the sidelines, to actually get into the fray and use their voices to help other people.
Thanks, Annette. That's a really important point. It is about not just us who are choosing to challenge, and interesting to hear your thoughts on whether you see much change or that changing.
Yes and no. So in June, after the murder of George Floyd, there was lots of challenging, just in general, and the Me Too movement, lots of challenging, lots of people saying the right things. As time has gone on and the smear campaigns have kind of come out, people are regressing, it feels. So there's still quite a few people who are dedicated and committed to change, but there's a lot of people where you can't bring the conversation up without being attacked, and that's worrisome. So that's why it's important. It's important for other people's voices to be heard as well, because if it's just us, it's just an echo chamber. We're just the angry women, with angry women who just keep banging on about stuff. It has to be everybody who kind of jumps in and uses their voices too.
Jo, would you like to add to that your own personal? What does choosing to challenge mean to you?
Yeah, sure. I've made it my life's work to challenge. So since Chelsea and I set up Innovate Her 5 years ago now, wow, we made a path. We chose to challenge daily the patriarchal systematic inequalities that we have to live within. And it is, like, I think it was Bim who said it can be exhausting. And sometimes I think, why am I doing this? What is the point? But then I see the impact on the girls and the women that we work with, and how it's making their lives better and making it easier for them to progress through society. And I realise exactly why it's important. But I think choosing to challenge, it's a difficult path and it takes a lot of energy, but ultimately it's very rewarding. And I think the way in which you choose to challenge is very important. So Annette's just mentioned angry women. And historically, that's exactly how feminists have been viewed, is a bunch of women who are on the soapbox saying this isn't fair, this isn't fair. And ultimately, that has progressed us to a point, but the best way that we found to address this issue is through education, actually, and through gentle, positive messaging and campaigning, because people are far more likely to come on board and be an ally and work with you towards a better society if you're talking about positive messages and you're talking about how it benefits everybody, men included, people from all different backgrounds. And if then people will start to come on the journey with you, and it's all about the mechanisms that you choose to challenge. And I think education is actually key in this space.
It's crucial to our future, it's crucial to society. You know, when I see the things that I had to deal with back in the 80s still happening, it's really not good enough. We say that we are a civilized, forward-thinking society, and yet our girls and our women are subjected to like just things that, you know, daily abuse sometimes, trolling for speaking up, all kinds of things, sexism in the workplace, harassment, all of these things that should not they shouldn't exist, but they shouldn't be okay. They shouldn't be brushed under the carpet, which a lot of the times they are, and quite publicly as well. And so I think our society depends on us speaking out and everybody kind of getting on board and finding their own why in this. Just going back to what Joe was saying about everybody having being empathetic towards this cause and seeing why it's important to them as well, getting everybody on board. It's really key to the advancement of our society, really.
Thanks, Annette.
I can go if you want. I think that there have been key moments in, I'm going to say herstory instead of history, just in a true feminist sense, where people have chosen to challenge, and it's created a better society for everyone. Thinking of the Pankhursts, particularly in Manchester, as an example. But without these key personalities or key figures challenging, then change wouldn't have happened. So it's really important. But speaking from a personal perspective, I have one example, which was in the workplace, where I was doing exactly the same job as a male counterpart, recruited at exactly the same time, and had more responsibility than he did, and also a direct report. And I found out that he was getting paid £5,000 more than me. So when I went to my manager and asked why this was, he said, well, he simply negotiated harder in the interview process for his starting salary. So the onus was on me. The responsibility was on me. It was my failing that I hadn't negotiated harder. And I think that's what often happens in society in general, and in the workplace definitely, is that it's up to the minority or the person, the individual concerned, to fight that battle to make it equal. But actually what we need to do is challenge the structures and the systemic inequality that lives there, and say, actually, you know, that's not fair. Everybody should have the same starting salary. And that was nothing to do with, a lot of the time, the gender pay gap is said to be because a woman's gone off on maternity leave and therefore fell behind her male counterparts in terms of progression. That was absolutely not the case. So it's just, I guess, a really personal example of where I've experienced inequality in the workplace and how that's manifested and why we still need to challenge it.
And I can tell you, Joe, that's not a unique experience. It's an experience of many, and I'm sure Vim would like to come in on that as well. But it's telling what is normalised, not just in the workplace, but in your daily interactions, and the fact. And I'm sorry of the fact that you've been told that, you know, you had to negotiate harder. And that there was an expectation for you to do so. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known. You probably wouldn't have known what somebody else was getting. And certainly the gender pay gap is something that a lot of we're all fighting for, and it still exists. Vim, would you like to come in on that too?
Yeah, yeah, I think that onus on the minority to have that argument or have that conversation is so true. And I think what's really striking is that person had a position of power to make it equal and fair without you even realizing, and they made a conscious choice not to do that. That's what blows my mind, is when you're in a, you've got two decisions to make and you actually actively go for the one that is unequal and unfair and is proliferating a sexist problem in the industry, and you're okay with that, and then you say to someone, oh well, it was your job to do. Like, that absolutely blows my mind. And I think that's where it comes down to choice. We all have a choice in how we progress or hold back this conversation, this movement, all the nuance within it. But equally, we all have power, like, regardless of which position we're in, whether we're starting out in the industry. We have definitely unequal power, but we all have a sense of power to be able to have a conversation, or to call something out, or to go to a manager and say what's happened here. Because it's not until we do that we might be able to trigger a change in behaviour. But yeah, I'm just really sorry that that's happened to you, and it makes me sad that it's so common. Like, it's I hear stories of it at least 5 times a week, of someone just asking, what can I do? How do I negotiate this? Where do I go now?
Can I also just say that, just speaking to the pandemic, so 77% of the highest risk jobs were female during COVID-19, and over 1 million of them, there was 3 million of the high risk jobs, 77% female, and 1 million of those are paid beneath the poverty line. So women were far more likely to be in poverty during the pandemic, far more likely to be doing unpaid care work. I think they pick up 60% more unpaid care work than men do. And then also, when you look at the stats around Black and minority ethnic groups, for women, it's even worse in those groups. There's a higher percentage of BAME women who are working in the care industry. So all of these add up to a picture of vast inequality, and actually the pandemic exacerbated that and widened that gap. Now, I think we have a massive opportunity to build society now, potentially how we want it to look. It feels like we're on the cusp of something, and we can either choose to carry on with this society where all these inequalities exist, and every time there's a crisis, it worsens it, or we can choose to build a society that's different. And I think that now is the time, and actually choosing to challenge in 2021 feels like a key moment in time, like a pivotal moment where we can make this change.
I think my 16-year-old self was probably more argumentative than I am now. I took nothing at 16. I was so annoying. Like, I was just absolutely, like, I can remember once growing up in a very traditional, like, Asian household. My older boy cousin was playing on the PlayStation and was like, oh, you should just go in the kitchen and make me a cup of tea now. And I, like, ripped the PlayStation controller out of his hand, was like, absolutely not, and now you're not going to play FIFA. Like, I just was, like, formidable, I think. And there's something that I would want to say of, like, conserve your energy, because you don't need to be on all the time. You don't need to you don't need to fight like that at every point. And actually, because I didn't have anyone telling me that, or that self-awareness even, it meant when I did go into the workplace and I saw stuff I disagreed with, it was really hard not to go in all guns blazing. And actually, like I think Joe said it, there's a way of using your voice and having a positive conversation about change rather than how I was and being like argumentative and aggressive with it. That just wasn't helpful at all. So I think I'd tell my 16-year-old self to slow down and like think about what impact I actually want to have, not the here and now hot-headedness. But to your point of women who might not have that safety or opportunity or privilege to speak out and to challenge or know where to start, I think mentoring has been like the biggest thing for me, like having a mentor who's helped guide me through how to have those conversations, and understanding just the lay of the land has massively helped me in my career, and recognizing how to use my power, but equally then giving that back to people and keeping that loop and cycle of like shared learning and experiences going, I think is the advice I'd give to people who are trying to find their voice.
I guess I would say find your tribe. So if you're in a workplace and you've gone there, find people who you feel at home with and do that quite quickly. It can be quite isolating, especially in pretty much every career. I did graphic design, then web design, digital marketing, then digital services. And for most of my career, I'm either the only one in my team or I'm one of like two. And so when you are different, like I find a lot of the times that people have a stereotype of who they think I am. They see my gender and they see my colour and they think, right, Annette is this particular way, and everything else is confirmation bias. So, if I act in a particular, I'll act the opposite of the stereotype and they don't see it. And the minute there's something happens and I might get slightly annoyed, oh, there she is, there's the angry black woman. So it's quite unnerving, but it's something that I've kind of gotten used to. But finding people who you can be at home with, people that you feel safe with, people that you can speak to and that you can trust in the workplace is really key to just having really balanced mental health and kind of protecting yourself. And then also feeding on what Vimla said as well, finding a mentor. You need to find somebody who is going to advance you in rooms that you can't be in. You need somebody who's going to speak on your behalf. I've found that throughout my career where incidents have happened because I've had a mentor that said, she wouldn't do that. That's what's kind of diffused the situation, where if I didn't have that person, all hell would have broken loose, or did, but it didn't get calmed down again. So I would say find your tribe, find a mentor, and believe in yourself. Trust your gut as well.
Thanks, Annette. Jane.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mess when I was 16, to be honest with you. I was just thinking back to those days. God, but like Vim, I was very feisty, and I've always, I've had to temper that over the years and learn emotional intelligence. And I've learned the hard way that how you frame your message and the language that you use changes how people react to it. So that was one thing that I agree with Vim on. But I think I would say to myself at 16 to remember that if you can think something or dream something, then you can make it happen. Because it took me until my 30s to realise that I could do or be whoever I wanted to be. There was no limitations, there was no restraints. And it took me until I was in my 30s to find the work and the purpose that I wanted to, that fulfills me, that makes a difference. So it's just that kind of having no limitations really on what you can dream. And I think with society, if we can dream that we can create an equal society, then we can make it happen. It's within our reach. And speaking to your point again about people finding their own voice, I think the beauty of the world that we live in at the moment, which can also be quite terrible at times, is that we have a lot of different communication channels available to us, a lot of different options. So I'm not a big fan of video, to be honest. It makes me quite nervous, but I love writing. I love the written word and blogging. So I can get my points across in that medium. And I think for young people now, they can do microblogging, they can do have different social media, TikTok, little mini videos, whatever you feel comfortable using to help you find your voice and get your message out there. Just go for it, because there are lots of different options available to you right now. And it doesn't have to be video, and it doesn't have to be making a speech to 1,000 people. It can be a blog that goes viral, can have just as much impact.
That's great, Jo. I think really important points there on mentors, on finding your voice, on having courage. I remember wanting to be an architect, but being told that it's a man's world. And I think part of having that courage at the time would have made me probably think about a different path. But I started my career in the games industry. And I was the only female there in a company. Well, there was another female, one of two females in a company of 200 men. And finding your voice in that was, it took me a while. And it probably took me until after I left. So, you try harder, you do more, to also understand your own worth. And I think that's part of our journeys to kind of where we are today, and understanding that value. I'd love to know role models. Who would and you are all role models to me anyway, and having you here and being able to kind of celebrate what you've brought to the world, and the difference that you're making individually. It's a privilege to kind of sit here with you today. Just in terms of the importance of role models, and I'm quite inspired by my 5-year-old niece. I gave her a book called Her Story, and now she wants to be Katherine Johnson, an engineer. At 5 years old, she wants to take over the world, and I am quite inspired by that courage. But also, she saw a dance video the other day, and she asked, "Why aren't the men dancing? Why is it only women dancing?" So I just thought, that's brilliant. But it kind of reinforce how somehow we lose our voice along the way, and the importance of mentoring and role models to help us or remind us kind of where we are, and that we're okay, we're on track, and we've got everything we need. So I'd like to open it up here, just to understand who your role models are, or what inspires you.
My biggest role model is Maya Angelou. Fearless, outspoken, honest, truthful. I mean, you could not get a more authentic person, and also a person like me who has had many, many, many different careers. She started off as one thing, and ended up just being amazing in all of them. So just, an amazing woman.
Yeah, mine is my mum and my aunties. I think my inspiration and aspiration, work ethic, empathy is so rooted in their stories and their journeys and the hardships that they had to overcome. And anytime I find myself complaining or just getting caught up in my own crap, I'm a bit like, oh wait, no, like I don't have to fight. I have it so easy compared to the battles of the generations before. And I just find it really humbling. And I don't know what kind of person I would be without those strong female influences on my life. So it's like above and beyond. It's the female family that I've had that have made me who I am.
Amazing, thanks, Vim. Jo?
I think similar to yourself, Beena, I find working with young women really inspiring. So the 13 to 16-year-olds that we teach digital skills and engage with every week, they never, ever cease to amaze you with some of the insights and maturity, and they just get it. They're just like the streets ahead of our generation. And when they come into the workplace, they're going to completely disrupt it. But personally, I think my grandma, she's not with us anymore. And there's things that I'd really like to ask her now, and it's a shame because I can't. But she had a string of her own businesses. She had a chippy, she had a hotel, she ran a chocolate shop. And I think that's where I get my entrepreneurial streak from. And she was a female entrepreneur way ahead of her time, and just owned it completely. So there isn't a day goes by that I don't miss my grandma, and she's still my role model.
Thanks, Jo. I think there's certainly role models in everyone, and it's about recognising that and finding that. But so wonderful to kind of hear yours and sort of what inspires you. I think I think we've come to a close now, but it's been a really inspiring conversation as always. So thanks very much for joining us today.